for that physique, and it is one that probably you and I would consider unnaturally thin, you know, almost unpleasantly thin. It is the caricature of the classical ballerina. Now, I'm very pleased to say that there is resistance to this stereotype, and there are increasingly ballet companies around the world who are deliberately working with women and with men that don't conform to the stereotype. But yeah, she chose a really tough shell to crack, that one. Really tough. Because it's an inbuilt prejudice, and it's ridiculous. I mean, look at her. She's a beautiful, beautiful girl.
I read where Isabella's mother was furious and said, "You're calling my daughter fat? She's not European. She's not dry and thin. She's a Brazilian. A Brazilian has a bum." And I thought that was funny because, you know, she was just a healthy girl, and I'm like, what are they expecting her to lose, muscle?
Yeah. As I say, it's an ancient, literally a kind of a medieval concept of what, you know, the classical form should be, the perfect classical form. I personally don't agree with it, and there are lots of other companies and other, dance companies around the world that don't either. But it is still adhered to by the kind of majority of this profession. And yeah, it's not clever, it's not smart, and the pressure that it places on these young women, in particular, is brutal. You know, she's not the first young woman to be devastated by the kind of fascism of that body image. It's a very sad thing.
Your film does not appear to focus heavily on violence like some Brazilian films. Do you feel that your film presents an honest portrayal of Rio de Janeiro?
I feel that I was trying to get away from that stereotype in a way. I feel like we all know that parts of Rio, that the favelas are very unsafe places. And I felt that to focus on that would have been in some way sort of exploitative or distracting. That was not what this film was about. That was not the focus of this film. And for sure, if violence had come into their lives during the making of the film, then it would have had a more prominent role. But what I certainly wasn't going to do was kind of insert it, synthetically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, go looking for it. You weren't going to go looking for it.
I certainly wasn't going to looking for it. I think that would have been a really, irresponsible, be just untrue, The experience of their lives was not that. You had Penny at the very front of the film talking about it this very matter-of-fact way. Oh yeah, they're shooting over there, here, there. That's the truth. That's, it's an everyday thing, and on an everyday level, they deal with it in a very calm way. And so that's how I represented it also.
What are some of the possible challenges of filming a documentary during such a pivotal time in the characters' lives?
You've got to be able to be there, and that was tough given the production team were based in London, and the characters' homes were in Rio, and there was shooting happening in Switzerland and New York, and it was tough to keep track and to keep up the funding, to be able to follow them. So that's the first thing when you're making a film over time, being there enough to really get the transition and change, and be able to afford to scoot out there and capture a kind of moment in that family's lives. So I'd say it's that, and secondly to that, when you're filming over a long period of time, it can be easy sometimes to kind of lose track of where your story's going, if that makes sense, to become distracted by little mini narratives, and trying to stay true to the kind of purpose of your film and the kind of main trajectory. That can also be a challenge too. You have to be very disciplined.
You were with Isabella in Iran for such a long time. Was it hard to keep emotional distance?
I never keep emotional distance. That's why I work in documentaries, because I can be emotional. Otherwise, I'd be a news journalist or something much more impartial and cool. I love to fall in love with the characters. I love to become totally preoccupied by their lives, and all the twists and changes in their lives. And yeah, I think that I think that engagement is I hope that showed in the film, that that there was care, that there was care, and there was an intimacy between us, that they trusted me and I trusted them, and that allowed us to follow this journey together. And I'm incredibly proud to say that they love the film and that their families love the film, and I think that's testament to the closeness of our relationship.
In the film, I felt proud for Ilan, but I identified with Isabella, maybe because she had to struggle. Do you sense that audience felt this way as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, most of us are Isabellas, right? I mean, that's who most of us are, aren't we? We try really, really hard to reach for the highest notes, and we get some ways, but not every, I mean, Ilan is genuine, by any definition, is a very unusual young man. And to that end, yeah, I far more closely relate to Isabella and the struggles she had within her family. I don't know if it would be helpful, but would you like to have an update about what's happened to the kids since?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, that was going to be my next question. At the end of the documentary, which would have been about the end of 2008, Isabella's future seems uncertain. But I was so curious about what happened with her that I searched online to find out some additional material. So would you like to give our audience an update as to what happened with Isabella since that competition in New York?
Well, I have to say I cheated the end of the film just a little, because when I left her, she was actually in a very sad place. She was very low indeed. And I felt that was the wrong note to finish the film on. I felt that wouldn't do her justice, and it wouldn't actually represent her character, and the fact that I knew her buoyancy and her enthusiasm, her passion would win out. And that's why I shot that little scene with her teaching a young black girl. She was actually doing that at the time, but it probably gave a unreasonably optimistic kind of ending note for her. Well, of course, she did bounce back, and I'm delighted to say that she went and did a stint with the Debra Coca company, which is a very fine contemporary company within Brazil. And then she went to São Paulo and joined a ballet company for a period there, and is now just headed back to Rio and is making new plans. And, as we know, meanwhile, Ilan has been at ABT in New York for the last 2 years and is just going from strength to strength and touring around the US and around the rest of the world. But in many ways, I think Isabella's triumph is far greater and far more impressive given everything that was stacked against her.
Yeah, I was reading about how she joined that São Paulo dance company, and I was thinking that she accomplished the very thing that Maritza said that she wouldn't be able to do, and that was find a classical company in Brazil that would accept her. So I thought that was great. I was wondering in the back of my mind if the film had any effect on the sensibilities of people in Brazil to make them, kind of examine, this stereotype. What has been like the feedback that you've gotten from the dance community in Brazil in reaction to this film?
Well, the film went down very well in Brazil. We were very fortunate to premiere at Rio Film Festival, but more than that, we actually hosted an impromptu screening inside the favela itself. We built a cinema in the back of the church courtyard and invited the whole community down to watch what would actually be the premiere of the film in Brazil. And it was terrifying and nerve-wracking beyond belief. It was the first time that Peña and Iranildo had seen the film, and our hearts were in our mouths. But I'm very happy to say it was a triumphant evening, and of course they became the heroes of the piece and were practically kind of hoisted through the crowd because everyone was so proud of them and what they'd done for Ilan. What was interesting at the public screenings of Only When I Dance was actually there was a lot of anger in the audience at the end of the screening. People standing up and saying, we are so angry that the government doesn't do more to support social projects within the favelas, doesn't do more to support our young people, because of course unemployment is very high, and actually opportunities, any kind of opportunity